Okay, we're back, and I have a nice little graphic that kind of covers the issue of self-disclosure. How much should you reveal about yourself based on how intimate the relationship is that you are thinking about revealing? So, if we're revealing biographical data, like simple little, demographic things like how old you are, where you come from, how many siblings you have, maybe what your college major is, stuff like that, that's the kind of thing that is, completely appropriate to be revealing early in a relationship, right? Like those are the kinds of things, if I wanted to Google you, I probably could find that information. So biographical data, yeah, we reveal that pretty early. We get a little deeper, a little bit. We've known each other a little bit longer when we start to reveal some of our superficial preferences. Things like, what kinds of clothes we prefer or food that we prefer. Oh, I don't really like fish. I mean, do you really want to say that to somebody who you just met? What kind of music you like? It's actually really, I gave you the fish example because it's kind of, for me as an adult not liking fish, it's kind of embarrassing. Like the other adults seem to like fish. And so I'm kind of like, I don't want to tell people that I don't like fish. But so I try to avoid the situation like, oh, hey, where do you guys want to go to dinner? Someplace that doesn't here's a place that doesn't really serve fish kind of thing. Like I don't want to go to a fish house kind of thing. We were hiring a new faculty member. And one of the things we do with faculty applicants is we take them out to eat and we get to know them and things like that pretty well. And at this time, I was working over on the Bellevue campus, and so I didn't really know my colleagues from the Cheney campus very well. And so we were going to be hosting this applicant, and so we were discussing where should we take them to eat and whatever. And one of my colleagues said, oh, we should go to this Thai restaurant, and I'm willing to go wherever you guys want to go. I can find something. But when they said, oh, how do you feel about Thai? I was like, well, in general, I'm okay with it, except for a lot of times the Thai restaurant smells very fishy. And I don't want to say this, but I don't really like fish. I don't like the smell of fish. It turns out the restaurant we went to does not smell like fish at all. So I was completely happy. And now we go to it every time we're in Bellevue. But at the time, I really hesitated about whether I should say anything, right? Because it's like, I don't want you guys to draw conclusions about me. But, we're barely getting to know each other at this time. And I really don't want you to draw conclusions about me being a big baby who doesn't want to smell fish, right? Like that, it sounds kind of like it's a dumb example, but hopefully you guys can all relate. I mean, maybe you had the same experience when you found out that somebody who you were starting to form a friendship with, maybe express that they don't like your favorite type of music. And you're kind of like, oh, I don't know if we can be friends. I mean, honestly, I don't know if we can be friends if you don't even like that. There must be a lot more things that I don't like that we wouldn't have in common. And so, those superficial preferences, a lot of times we'll save until we've gotten to know people a little bit better so that they aren't going to stereotype us immediately. Goals and aspirations. Now, this is an opportunity to reveal some vulnerability, right? I have this goal that I may or may not actually be able to achieve. Or I have something that I'm working towards that in the past, other people have shown disapproval or sort of, want to try and dissuade me from that aspiration. And so maybe I don't want to share this with you. So it might be career interests that we're talking about. It could be your beliefs, your goals, your aspirations regarding marriage or family decisions or the kind of lifestyle that you want to pursue. You might want to make sure that this person is a stable person in your life before you start revealing these things. And maybe you don't want to hear the opinions of a bunch of strangers and things. And so I'll wait until I know you well enough and know that I value your opinion, because I know that whenever I've revealed this stuff, people tend to unsolicitedly give me their opinion. So I'm going to wait until I get to know you a little bit better before I reveal these things so that I know whether I can take what you say seriously or not. Beliefs and convictions. So now we're starting to move into, religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs or our general philosophies about things. It could be political things. We may now in today's day and age, apparently we just foist these ideas on any stranger on the internet. But in a relationship that is face to face that you are likely to be friends or romantic relationships with, a lot of times we will save this stuff until we've gotten past the other sort of deal breaker kinds of conversations. And then we start to reveal our beliefs and our convictions about, deeper things. There used to be a saying that it's impolite to discuss religion, politics, and money with people that you don't know very well. We don't say that as much anymore. And we definitely, like I said, we'll say stuff on the internet to strangers about our attitudes or how dumb their attitudes are. That's what I always love. The stranger who says how dumb a person's attitude is. It's like how ignorant they are. It's like, oh, that is pretty harsh, but okay. We tend to save these things until we really are getting into a real relationship, a person who we really are wanting in our lives and stuff like that. Then we'll start sharing these attitudes with them. Then there are the deeply personal things, our private fears, our fantasies, our desires, past experiences that maybe we don't want everybody to know about, things like that. It could be, health related. It could be things that have happened to us. It could be a lot of different kinds of things that are personal things that maybe we don't like to talk about that often. So we save those till we really get to know a person. And then there's this ultimate inner concept issue, like how we actually see ourselves. A lot of times our inner concept is mixed, where we have some aspects that we feel confident, we feel good, and then other parts of our inner self-concept where we're questioning ourselves, and we don't necessarily want everybody who we come in contact with to know that we have these kind of dual views of ourselves. So we save those till later. So we tend to reveal these things towards the bottom. And I did an inverted triangle because it's sort of narrowing the field of people who you would actually share these things with. That was my visualization that I thought would be helpful for remembering this. All right. Now, in a relationship, and again, I would like to argue that the research I'm going to talk about is focusing on marital couples, but I'd like to argue that patterns of effective communication apply to all relationships. Now, there are different styles that people have when communicating. I've seen a lot of young people using the validating style. It must be something that you guys have been being taught in school and stuff like that, to look at each other, nod, ask follow-up questions, say supportive things. This is what we call validating. It's also in psychology, we'll call that active listening, right? Where I'm facing you, I'm engaged with what you're saying, I'm asking questions to show that I care. I might ask questions to clarify if I had a misunderstanding. The goal in this kind of a communication is to make sure that the speaker feels like the listener is on their side and supports their interpretations and their experiences. A lot of people think that's the only way to have an effective communication. But you know what? There are other ways. There's the volatile style. I don't know these people. I pulled them off the internet, but the way that their hands are and stuff like that makes me think that they might be having an adamant conversation, right? Where they are both trying to get their points across and they're being pretty emphatic with their hands. It turns out that for some people, the most effective way to get their point across is to, raise their voice and speak emphatically, to, gesture a lot, to walk around, things like that might, to some people, it might be viewed as being maybe intimidating or, something negative. But to others, it's like, okay, so now I understand that you're actually serious about what you're talking about. And you really need me to listen, right? I know when I married into my husband's family, they, on average, have a volatile, communication style. And so when you get together, my husband's the 8th of 8 children, and he has 3 stepchildren. And so if there's a family gathering, it gets really loud. And this was, a long time ago. I mean, a lot of them didn't even have kids yet. So we're talking about just, the 11 of them and their spouses. It's like, it's a big crowd. It's very noisy. And so if you're having a conversation with one of them, it might be being loud just because of that. And then a lot of times if you're discussing something that they're really excited about, they'll be volatile about that because they're really emphatic and enthusiastic, and it could be construed as, gosh, you're yelling. It took me a little while to get used to it because my family of origin does not have the volatile style as their typical style of communication. But over the years of being married, I've adopted more of the volatile style because it's the way to communicate with my husband, and also my daughter seems to have that style. And so it's a good way to get your point across is to use their style of speech, right? So it looks in this picture like, oh, these people might be about to fight or something, right? But just because you're gesticulating, just because your voice is raised, doesn't necessarily mean that you aren't being effective in communicating your ideas or that this is going to escalate. Like this may just be the style, and it's an effective way to communicate as long as both people have that style. Conflict avoiding is actually, it could be an effective communication style also. It's some people call it picking your battles. And so if it's not really that big of a deal, is it worth getting into an argument about? Like, I know that if I bring it up, it's probably going to take us into a volatile type of conversation where we each are frustrated because we know that the other one is not seeing it the same way that we are. And I really don't feel like getting into that whole thing because it's really not that important. And so I'm just going to let it go. Now, the picture that I got gives it a little bit more like these two kind of look like they've given up, right? They're like, oh, it's hopeless. And that's not what I'm trying to imply with the conflict avoiding description. Conflict avoiding means that, really picking your battles, maybe deciding not to have a conversation when it might get volatile, but instead, sitting down when everybody's feeling a little bit more calm and having more of a validating conversation that you might both feel more comfortable with. So the idea is that I would like to convey is that there are multiple ways to communicate within a dyad, right? A dyad would be any partnership. It could be friends, it could be siblings, it could be romantic people. As long as you are both knowing that this is how we are going to talk to each other, and as long as we are being fair in our conversations, we're not calling names, we're not, those kinds of things. Any of these patterns could be effective in communicating one's thoughts and attitudes. All right, I'm going to stop here and let you watch the next thing that's in the playlist, which is the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse from the Gottman Institute. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about those 4 horsemen in more detail.